Okay, we're going to get going here. Thank you for all who've stayed and for the opportunity to share some information about Circle Cardiovascular. I'm Tim Albert. I'm a cardiologist, a cardiac imager. I've been practicing for over 20 years, and I'm the Chief Medical and Product Officer at Circle. We've got some great speakers today, and myself and Dr. Chao Wei, Chief Technology Officer, as well as Dr. Damini Day and Dr. JOÁO CAVALCANTE. Just to give you a little bit of background around Circle, in case you're not familiar with us, we've been in the business for a number of years, with an initial focus being in the cardiac MRI arena. Founded in 2007, we're now in over 90 countries with 1,700 installations plus involved in supporting the scanning and image analysis of over 50,000 patients a month, and pleased to be present in the top hospitals around the world. Our focus has always been on looking at value proposition, and a lot of that was driven by cardiac MRI, the complexity of it, the need for heavy analytics. And we've been carrying that forward into other areas and into cardiac CT, which is what we'll be talking about today. But it's really that focus on accuracy, reproducibility, simplification, the single click, speed, and evidence. So showing that your algorithms and data are sound. This gives you a little idea of the innovation timeline for the company back to 2007 when we were founded, and have had some significant milestones in the MRI arena as well as the CT and structural heart with work that we've done both independently and in partnerships. TruePlan, which I'll be showing you briefly, partnership with Boston Scientific for left atrial appendage closure, and work with Addus and most recently InHeart and EP imaging. Along the road, it's been a lot of innovation, and glad to have Chao here to talk about that. But if you look at the background of the algorithms, over 120,000 studies, annotated studies that have been involved in building up the portfolio, with 20-plus deep learning models deployed, over 1,000 installations using these on a regular basis. And allowing really for optimization of speed and accuracy. Our portfolio is fairly broad, certainly in the cardiovascular arena. So as mentioned in cardiac MRI, we've gone deep in a number of applications and have carried that forward for cardiac CT, as well as interventional planning with structural heart, electrophysiology, and in the neurovascular arena with acute stroke imaging algorithms. When looking at our core CT, again, the thought is easy use, and really it's the concept that we've been carrying across the portfolio, is the throughput, extending this then to the specialized applications where we have autoplaque analysis, and we've integrated a CEDAR solution at 1.4, 2.0 level, and Damini's going to be talking a little bit more about more advanced solutions. Automatic Agassiz scoring, so you open it up, pre-processing of that, as well as recently, and with this meeting, the release of our cardiac function with CT. Reporting is key. We've seen a number of good report examples with industry leaders here at the conference, and we firmly believe that you need more than just numbers to convey the important information to our patients and referring doctors. So we have the ability and really the link in our workflow for complex reporting. The valves, obviously a lot of interest and use for CT in valves. We have extensive experience in the aortic valve, and João's going to be speaking about valve planning, both with automation for annulus detection and measurements, as well as a single-click assessment of the aorta for planning purposes. Again, the report will go along with there to give you all the necessary measurements. This shows an example of our TruePlan software where you're going to automatically go right to the landing zone for the left atrial appendage, do the measurements there, and then do the testing, actually figure out what device sizes would be optimum for placement in the valve. You also have the ability with this to look at from different perspectives. So we have fluoro angles, and you can also modify the catheter, so helps when determining for that atrial septal puncture, what would be the best catheter to guide placement into the left atrial appendage. With that, I want to hand it over to Dr. JOÁO CAVALCANTE. He's the section head of cardiac imaging at Minneapolis Heart.
Thank you so much, Tim. Thanks, Circle. Thanks for all of you who's staying later here tonight. Just hope to give you a little bit of a teaser of what Circle has been working on the last few years on the space of structural imaging. Obviously, lots of other options there, but I think it provides a comprehensive solution, particularly when you talk about using CMR as well and the CT piece. That was what we're going to be highlighting. Receive some consultation on our area as well from Circle, and we use that in our core lab as well for many of these trials. So having starting just a simple example of how we can leverage the CT, initially pre-contrast scan, obviously coronary calcification is what I'm showing here. There could be some automation as well for the aortic valve. In patients with severe aortic stenosis, we know that calcification metrics by using Agatston score can be robust way to assess a flow-independent methodology. Here we have a segmentation per each one of the vessels, just done automatically by the AI. And with the aortic valve, you can just choose another other and click on that, but automating that could be beneficial. Here's the other thing that I could potentially could show. Patient with bicuspid aortic valves, that's a trouble group that we have been trying to treat, and some patients successfully without the trial, but some patients with bicuspid, it can be done. Here's a very important view that we can use. This is a MIP, a hockey puck MIP, that provides the calcification of the raphe and the exuberance of calcification of the contraposing cusp. The segmentation is done automatically here of the annulus as well. With that, you can, just as I'm showing, provide measurements automatically for the aortic root, the aortic annulus, coronary ostia height, and all of that can be integrated into ultimately the report. On the top right here, I can click and the automatic segmentation of the vessel is done. And scrolling up and down, I can provide also the calcium volume of each one of these cusps and provide the angulation as well. That will be important for this patient for the angle of implant for both self-expanding, balloon expandable valves. The segmentation of the iliofemoral is also possible in this vascular module, and providing the measurements of the annulus as well and the degree of calcification and tortuosity, all of which would be important for the decision of whether the transfemoral access is possible. Coronary arteries is something that we are using more and more at the same time of the scan, not necessarily subjecting each one of these patients for invasive cath. This is something that can be done. It should be done automatically, not yet ready, but something that could be extracted, obviously, for central lines. There are patients that we might need to still consider invasive angiography. There are other patients that we don't need to subject them, and that's probably almost 50-50. And this is a recent paper highlighting that CAD exclusion by CT is excellent. So almost 40-50% of the patients, depending on the prevalence of the disease, you don't need to subject them to invasive cath. Now, RV dysfunction is something that our group has done. This is using a segmentation 2D, so it's a 3D data set, but we segment in 2D using the Circle module. And RV dysfunction, this is work by Miho Fukui, who is here in our audience, 500 patients, comparing CT identification of RV dysfunction versus echo. And echo, you can use any combination of the three parameters. Long story short is that 1 in 4 patients in echo was found to have normal. There's nothing wrong. CT was found to be abnormal. RVEF less than 50%, and the outcomes were not dictated by what the echo called, but actually by what the CT had shown. Now, fast forward to something that JOÄO is going to be talking more about. This is a recent release on the CT core, CT, automated segmentation. So instead of now drawing circles, can we use Circle to do automated circles and automated tracings for us? So that can cut our time substantially. This is something that we are very much looking forward to continue the work and exploring that clinically in our lab. And obviously, all the reporting that I showed you before can be taken to the future. And even you can game the system. If you patients that have advanced chronic kidney disease, you can take a 3D data set by MRI and use that to also do all the planning and measurements using this software tool. Now, let's move from the aortic to the mitral valve. This is obviously a space that is seeing a rapid development. We have edge-to-edge therapy. We have TMVR. For patients that had a prior valve repair, in this case here, we have an incomplete annuloplasty band. These are not patients ideal for valve in ring because this does not have any anterior support. But I would say that the visualization of the valve leaflets that you already have in the current platform is quite good. This is a TEE-like view, and some of these patients, you can skip the TE because you can see where the pathology and the mechanism of disease is. A lot has been done into TMVR planning, the estimation of the new LVOT. There's still some manual input, but as you will hear next from next speakers, this has been their plans for automation, and a lot of this manual tedious work can be also facilitated. The nice way to also use this in the planning for TMVR is that we can import STL files and then measure the estimated new LVOT, different valve sizes, different angles of implantation can be all leveraged by the CT planning, and also the axis. So for transeptal, sometimes you need a higher puncturing height, in this case here for the Abbott Sophia device, or for the old Tendyne device, which now has been phased out from the market but is approved in Europe, you will require a transapical axis, and you need to know what each intercostal space you need to puncture that. And also applying different STLs. And if you don't have enough space, can you use modifications of the anterior leaflet like Lampoon or like Citral? All of that, you can do the simulation. And ultimately, at the pre- and post-implant comparison, this is a patient that received the High Life device. It's a transeptal, transeptal device, transfemoral transeptal. You can see the nice correlation between what was estimated versus what was measured in the post-implant. Now, switching gears to the right side to finish, tricuspid valve is something that has been really near to our hearts at Minneapolis Heart Institute with Triluminate. It requires, obviously, a special acquisition. But again, I think the visualization of the leaflets and the quantification of function is something that Circle can provide, and hopefully more automated. The leaflets, it's something quite exquisite. It helps us out to determine the strategy. The wider the gaps, this patient would be less ideal for edge-to-edge and better for TTVR. The angles where we are more coplanar, we can measure also the size of that hole, and that is a very important discriminator of TR severity in the patient population. Atrial fibrillation is so common. I've shown those slides on my prior talk too, but just to show the exquisiteness of CT, if you do a proper acquisition, you can see these gaps, you can see the reflux into the hepatic veins. You can define the strategy in patients with pacemaker where you need to mobilize this lead. So in our center, in which edge-to-edge repair is quite a common treatment strategy for these patients, the visualization of these leaflets is quite important as a metric. And you can track, obviously, here using the software as well, the remodeling changes that have occurred. So in conclusions, cardiac CT, I think for TAVR obviously is a must-have. We cannot do without. The AI that I have shown here can augment that workflow and expedites the procedural planning. For TMVR, there's a lot of developments that will be helpful to expedite this tedious process. Started the valve-in-valve, you already have landmarks, and then moving to other patient population. And I think for edge-to-edge repair, particularly for TEER, for us, it has been actually augmenting and even replacing, in some cases, TE. A lot of these patients, it's actually better to just get the CT and see, can we get the visualization and the information and, moving forward with the process. And then for most patients, we can use the segmentation that you are now providing, hopefully with the addition of the GLS and the CT-CV to improve this risk stratification. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Dr. Cavalcante. Just one question on the functional assessment or the value of functional assessment of the LV or RV pre-valve intervention. Any comments there when that should be done?
Yeah, I think that's a great point, Tim. More and more we are trying to do and provide that information up front because the echo, the RV, you cannot see it well, it can be misleading as I've shown. So having that automatically provided, it would be, now can we bill for that? That would be something that we need to work on. The second is that now these volumetric measurements are being very much valued by industry as potential surrogates for your therapy effectiveness. So if you were able to track that at baseline and see how much reverse remodeling that device can provide, that could also be another important metric that could be leveraged for application for FDA, et cetera. So I think it's something that we should try to aim for.
Great, thank you.
Absolutely.
Well, I know Dr. Cavalcante's got a little double booked here, so we appreciate his time. And I'd like to introduce Dr. Chow Wei. He's our Chief Technology Officer at Circle, and going to give you a little bit insight as to how we work behind the scenes to develop the algorithms and develop this technology that we bring forward with a specific focus on the journey we had with CT function. Thanks.
Thank you, Tim. Appreciate you staying with us tonight. So now that you're seeing our products from Tim and JOÄO, I'd like to take a moment to share with you how Circle approach building AI products. First, a little bit background about our team. They're the reason why I'm up here. We're based in Calgary, Alberta. We're a team of 50 engineers, and we come from a variety of different backgrounds. Biomedical engineering, medical sciences, software development, and of course, AI and machine learning. Now, despite our different backgrounds, we're all scientists at heart, and this means that we like to approach things very scientifically. When we build new products, we always like to ask ourselves several fundamental questions. First, can we build a device that is safe to use? And this goes beyond just having an accurate AI algorithm. Can we actually design a device that puts a user in control instead of an algorithm? We like to ask, what is the scientific evidence behind the validation? What does the validation data set look like? Do we have enough variations in the data set? Then how will the AI be used and integrated? Is it going to be a black box, or is it going to be a transparent system with results that are explainable? And then lastly, we know that just having science behind our product isn't enough. User experience matters just as much. So this is a bit of an art, but these are all important questions that guides our product development process at Circle. Let's take CT function as an example. So this is a recently released module from Circle, and function is something we've been doing for a long time in the AMR space. So it didn't take long for us to build a new AI-based segmentation algorithm for segmenting all 4 chambers of the heart in CT images. And on the left here, you can see how our AI segmentation compares to an expert segmentation. To validate this model, we compared the segmented volume to a consensus volume averaged from 3 expert cardiologists and radiologists. And you can see the volume difference on the right-hand side here. You can see that our left ventricle segmentation was very accurate with a near 0 mean volume difference. Now the right ventricle is a bit more challenging. The algorithm had a tendency to overestimate the volume, but it's also important to recognize that the right ventricle is a more complex structure, and even for expert readers, the inter-reader variabilities are often higher. So at this point, we had a well-validated AI algorithm. It was not integrated yet, so the user couldn't interact or correct the volume. And to remedy this, we built a 3D mesh on top of our AI segmentation, and we integrated the 3D mesh into our core CT platform. This provided a simple tool that allowed the user to interact and correct with the volume. We spent a lot of time debating on what the optimal number of control points we should use for the mesh, and what the trade-off would be between ease of use, having less control points for the users to correct, or segmentation accuracy, having more control points to represent the actual anatomy. In the end, we settled with 8 control points. At the time, we felt that was a good trade-off. So we built a brand new workflow with an integrated AI algorithm, a simple correction tool. The issue was when we took this algorithm and reran our validation, the device failed the validation and was not safe to use. And we were all scratching our heads as to what had happened after all the AI algorithm was well validated to begin with. It turned out the 3D mesh that we had developed introduced a significant error in our overall volume segmentation. So you can see in these plots, the 3D mesh was overestimating the volume for the left ventricle. For the right ventricle, the mean volume difference is about the same or slightly lower, but there was a significantly bigger variance. So we have more data sets on both ends of the spectrum with the bigger volume differences. If you take a look at the actual images, you'll see that our AI segmentation was in fact quite correct if you compare the first and the middle columns. The problem was when we introduced the 3D mesh on top of the AI segmentation, the 3D mesh was smoothing all of our contours as well as the valve plane. So we were treating all the valve planes as a simple plane. So these subtle differences contributed to an overall larger volume difference that caused our validation to fail. So this was a significant problem. This meant we had to go back to the drawing board and re-engineer the 3D mesh. And after about a couple months of investigation, it turned out how we placed the control points mattered. Even how we interpolated image affected the overall segmentation accuracy. So after many iterations and a lot of R&D effort, we finally had a new mesh. You can see it on this chart here. The improved mesh actually provides a much closer representation of the original AI segmentation volume, particularly for the left ventricle. Now for the right ventricle, the improvement was smaller. This is a very complex shape, and we were running into trade-offs between having too many control points versus ease of use. So in addition to just looking at the overall population, we also looked at subpopulation groups. Wanted to see if there are any biases in the different groups, whether that be gender, age, whether the sites that contributed the images made a difference, whether the scanner manufacturer mattered. So these are just some examples of the validation that we went through. So after an exhaustive validation process, we finally had a device that we felt that was well validated, well integrated, easy to use, and most importantly, safe to use. And this became the first AI-based CT function to be cleared by the FDA with a QIH code, which is their code for AI-based automated analysis. And we didn't want to stop there. In addition to just looking at volumes, we also wanted to look at motion and strain in the heart. And this is another area where we have a lot of expertise and a lot of experience in. So this time we took our feature tracking algorithm, we tuned it to tracking CT images, we created phantoms with known deformations, and we compared our tracking to these phantoms. And you can see the different iterations of our algorithms on the right-hand side here. And you can see our latest iteration, the red line, which is our latest algorithm, tracks very well compared to the ground truth, which is the yellow line. So this is still a work in progress to be released early next year. When Tim asked me to talk about what to expect from your cardiac imaging AI platform, I thought about the different AI imaging platforms out there and how we build products at Circle. This was a list that I came up with. I think the platform should be built with transparency and trust. You should be in control of the software, not the AI. There should be plenty of scientific evidence. It should be validated with a large variation of data sets. It should have a simple workflow and a great user experience. At the end of the day, there should be a lot of science behind the product and also a little bit of art. I think that's what differentiates a great cardiac imaging platform from the rest. Thank you.
Thanks, Chow. You know, it's always good, I think, to hear what goes on behind the scenes. It's kind of like being able to go into the kitchen and see the chef at work, and we got 50 great chefs up in Calgary that every time I show up, they're mixing something new, making something exciting, and it's not done without really hard work and the ability to question and problem solve. So as we saw, this is often an iterative process and needs to be validated. So with that in mind, the pleasure of introducing Dr. Damini Day, professor and scientist at Cedars-Sinai, who's going to talk about her extensive work with coronary and plaque imaging and the journey that's been involved in AI automation.
Thank you. Thank you, Tim, for the kind introduction. It's my pleasure to talk a little bit about our work on coronary plaque analysis, and here are my disclosures. So as you have heard throughout this conference, we can measure plaque quantitatively from coronary CT angiography, and this is a very exciting and active field. So here's one example from the Scott Hart trial, which shows quantitative plaque assessment of the lumen in blue and non-calcified plaque, as well as low attenuation plaque, which is a surrogate of the lipid core. So in the Scott Hart trial, in 1769 patients from the CTA arm, we could show that it's an extensively quantitative analysis of the CTM arm of this trial, and we could show that the low attenuation plaque burden was the strongest predictor of myocardial infarction. This has been shown by Michelle Williams. And patients with a larger low attenuation plaque is nearly 5 times more likely to have a heart attack, future heart attack over 5 years, outperforming clinical risk factors, luminal stenosis, CT calcium scoring, and the total plaque burden. So here's a picture, a screenshot of core CT 6.1 by Circle. And if you started to use from 6.0, you would have noticed that the AutoPlaque 2.5 libraries are actually integrated into this package and can be used with extensive work by the team for adapting it for clinical use. So where does AI fit in? So as you have seen in this conference also, AI is in all aspects of imaging. For CT imaging, it is involved in image acquisition. It plays a role in image reconstruction, improvement of image quality, segmentation and quantification, and finally also patient management, classification and reporting of disease, and prognostication and management. So we have significantly accelerated the plaque quantification from coronary CTA by applying AI, and that's been published. This is an international multi-center study, which was published in the Lancet Digital Health in 2022. This is an on-site analysis, and it accelerated the plaque measurement from about half an hour per patient to the order of seconds, with excellent agreement with expert readers and invasive intravascular ultrasound as well in a subset. Finally, we also tested it against clinical outcomes, and here is the results with the Scott Hart trial, where total plaque volume could significantly predict heart attack. And this was even when adjusted for clinical risk scores as well as quantitative stenosis. So this AI model needs to be integrated in software, and so this is now integrated into AutoPlaque software version 3.0. And here's one example from Cedars-Sinai Medical Center. This is an asymptomatic patient, non-obstructive coronary artery disease, but with significant plaque, non-calcified as well as calcified. We have also used it for atherosclerotic plaque tracking. So this is a 64-year-old woman, also from Cedars, on low-dose statin therapy with 2-year follow-up, LDL reduction of only 18%. But here you see plaque regression with a decrease of total plaque volume and non-calcified and low attenuation plaque volume, so the decrease of also of the high-risk plaque and increase of calcified plaque, so plaque regression and stabilization. So we have also reported in this is at the American College of Cardiology meeting this year, the results of a prospective EVOLVE study at Cedars-Sinai, which was tracking quantitative plaque in patients with significant coronary artery disease over 18 months after the PCSK9 inhibitor volocumab and the effect on coronary plaque. This is a mechanistic study. So there was imaging of, at both time points of both with coronary CT angiography as well as sodium fluoride PET, which looks at the plaque activity. So we could show that there was significant decrease over 18 months in non-calcified plaque volume, low attenuation non-calcified plaque volume, and an increase in calcified plaque volume. So again, high-risk plaque decrease and plaque stabilization with increase of calcified plaque, as well decrease in coronary microcalcification activity. Here you see the coronary microcalcification activity over the whole coronary tree of 3.1, which is high with the high sodium fluoride uptake marked on the coronary tree, and decreased over 18 months with PCSK9 inhibitor therapy. So then finally, what's the next step for AI? So this is I think the most important of the next step is acceptance by clinicians, because quantitative results can create more documents and more results to review, and can create more distance from the doctor to the physician. And this particularly is very important. So we have worked a lot to make this simpler and easier and clinically acceptable. So here's our work on patient-specific heart attack risk thresholds from AI-enabled coronary plaque. This is a large study of over 2,800 patients. It's an international multi-center study with AI-enabled coronary plaque. And we also looked at plaque percentiles in men and women. Women have lower coronary plaque of all subtypes than men, and that needs to be taken into account. So we have these plaque percentiles, and we could show in the Scott Hart trial and St. Francis study cohort with follow-up for myocardial infarction or heart attack, that the highest percentiles were at the highest risk of future heart attack, so 50th to 75th percentile with a hazard ratio of 2.2, and over 75th percentile with hazard ratio of 2.8. So the highest risk were in the greater than 75th percentile of total plaque volume. So, and we look forward to incorporating this more into the reports to make it easier for the quantitative plaque report. So finally, AI in medicine, these are the stages of grief. The first is denial, that we don't need AI. Then anger, why am I forced to use it? And finally, bargaining, maybe it's useful for some limited tasks. Then finally, when it starts working very well and you get used to it, it's depression, because that it will take my job away. And then finally, there's a nirvana of acceptance, that it will actually help physicians and patients. Thank you. Thank you to Circle.
Thanks. Thank you, Damini. A question, the ability to be able to find out if our patients are responding to therapy. So is the plaque regressing, especially the high-risk plaque? It's obviously dependent on having, reproducibility with the repeat imaging. Where are we in that? I mean, when we have population studies, you can accept a certain amount of error that you can't with the individual patient. Any thoughts there?
Yeah, so we have done some scan, rescan, reproducibility studies, and those can show us kind of the limit of what is the acceptable variation. Above that, you would consider progression or regression. We also tried to do plaque analysis in several diastolic phases for the same patient, and to show even for a per scan variability to be established. And that's a very important thing. Okay. So we have those limits for each plaque component.
Okay, great. Well, Happy to answer any questions, either through the microphone or we'll be up here after the talk. But I appreciate everyone staying, and please look us up, Circle Cardiovascular. We've been around, and we're committed and excited about this new CT journey of the company, and I think you'll see we've progressed pretty far. So have a great evening. Thank you.